narrative, and a
Once a week.
lot of people already in chat talking smack about the fact that we're 3 minutes late. Yo, you know what? Start your own stream, and then see how easy it is. Okay, but
Right?
I'm gonna blame Delaney for the most part. She comes in real late, and then I have to
Yeah,
scramble,
it's always
start
me.
everything up. That's what women are there for. You know, you have to blame them. All right, we got Synergy in chat. We got Bill in chat. What's going on, guys? I just lost my chat, so I got to pull that up real quick. While everybody joins, as you can see from the title, we got a wide array of topics we're covering tonight. We're going to be talking about South Africa, talking about the Lambda variant. That's right, folks, the Lambda. Because Delta, the word Delta, not scary enough. Okay, Lambda, it's a little, I don't know, a little scarier. I don't know. Maybe we'll see how that turns out. We're going to be talking about a study on climate change and the cost of the policies around climate change versus the actual effects of climate change, and whether or not we are actually seeing any increase in, for example, deadly hurricanes. It's going to be an interesting study in our science bite of the night. Talking about PG&E starting wildfires again. Is it 2020 all over again? Maybe not. We'll see. What's up, Doug Masters, J Mon, Region Zen, Dave, Arian, filling up the chat. I see you guys in there. Grab a drink. Load up the stereo. I don't know if stereo's running or not. It says connecting, but we're here, and we are awaiting your comments and questions and feedback. I tried to set the title of the stereo stream tonight as provocatively as possible. I titled it "Nobody Cares About COVID Anymore." So, see if we get some anybody taking the bait on that one. And with that said,
Yeah, we'll see.
you ready to get into it, Delaney?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. I think it's about time for a haircut for me when I see myself in that intro video. Might have to go back to the glory days there.
Right? Same. I need a haircut as well, Jeremy.
So how you been, Delaney? I know it's been a week since we talked last.
Oh, it's been good. I Saturday, when I had a free Saturday, went to in-laws, and we did a because my brother-in-law, his wife, and like a couple of our friends, we all have birthdays in July, so we always every year do a combined birthday party for all of us.
Nice.
So spent Saturday celebrating my birth. Yay!
All right, Doug's got a blue moon. That means he is ready. And
Yep. Put your chin strap on, Doug.
Yeah, get your chin straps and your helmets on, guys.
And your elbow pads on.
We're diving right into it here with actually, you know what? We got a stereo comment to warm us up. We got from our buddy Paul.
Really, only one thing needs to be said about what is it? The Lambda variant? Fucking.
Oh, good for you!
Good one, Paul.
Thank you, Paul, warming us up on the right foot. With that said, let's go to our quick stories segment of the day. This is a fun one that I found. I'm still plugged into my old local news from Sacramento. I got this doozy that came in the other day. FBI says 2 arrested in conspiracy to attack Democratic headquarters in Sacramento. This is going to kind of tie in with the Facebook misinformation stuff because, folks, if you don't already know this, if you're on any kind of social media groups where they're talking about, taking back the Capitol or, take back the country, patriots, or fight back patriots, stuff like that, where they're talking about that kind of stuff, there are feds in the group watching you, okay, and listening to what you're saying. So just keep that in mind because that's probably how these guys got caught. 2 men were indicted in connection with conspiracy to attack the Democratic headquarters building in Sacramento, the FBI's San Francisco office announced Thursday. Ian Rogers and Jared Copeland are accused of planning the attack, quote, using incendiary devices. FBI officials said Copeland was arrested in Sacramento on Wednesday, and Rogers was arrested in January and charged with federal court with stockpiling illegal weapons. Okay. So,
What is an illegal weapon, though? I mean, what do they classify that as?
let's pull it up. Let's see. Pipe bombs. There you go. And he looks like a very stable individual. Bomb-making material, thousands of rounds of ammo, 49 guns. Impressive collection, sir. But, guys, it says here in the article also that their the last words before being arrested were, "Fight back, patriots!" Now, you guys know I love to make fun of these kind of people, okay? Because, honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, this is a reason why I never affiliated very strongly with any of these groups. I've hung out with all these guys, okay? 3%ers, Proud Boys. I've seen them all the protests. They all know who I am. I hang out with them, etc., etc. But I've actually been invited to get inducted into the Proud Boys, by the way. But I refused because I don't want to associate with these people because they are a large percentage of the time just as mentally unstable as the left and irrational as well. Now, this is obviously a outlying case where you got two people who are going to be firebombing the Democratic headquarters in Sacramento. Outlier, yes, but still, there are a lot of irrational people on the right, and I want to highlight that as well.
Yep, we always got to, play the devil's advocate and showcase the idiocracy on both sides. Although it is easier to show the idiocracy on the left, and then you come across or you find these articles like this, and it's like, okay, there's idiots on the right too. It's two wings on the same idiotic bird.
Yeah. Now, beyond that, there's a greater narrative here that they're using this, of course. Now, this is why it's so stupid to even talk about doing these kind of things, because the FBI is going to find you. And they're going to use your story to perpetuate what? The 9/11 playbook that we were talking about. Perpetuating this narrative now of white people as the terrorists. So here's what the FBI's office in San Francisco's official statement was. Listen carefully. The FBI's highest priority has remained preventing terrorist attacks before they occur, including homegrown plots from domestic violent extremists. As described in the indictment, Ian Rogers and Jared Copeland planned an attack using incendiary devices. The FBI and Napa County Sheriff's Office have worked hand in hand to uncover this conspiracy and prevent any loss of life. Domestic violent extremists. Okay, so now, when the CNN and MSNBC losers are going on TV and Biden's saying things like, the greatest threat to American democracy is white Republicans or whatever, they can point to this kind of stuff. So thank you to the two retards who did this that now give them something to look at and point to.
Yep,
Terrible.
exactly. Yep, thank you, because this is just going to demonize white people even more than they're already being demonized.
Awful. FBI equals fabricating bias investigations. Yeah. Well, the best way to not get any kind of fabricated investigations is to just not be on these platforms like Facebook, trying to concoct conspiracies to fight back, patriots.
Yep.
Oh, man. Let's see. Let's jump to the stereo comment real quick from Paul.
It is actually hilarious. I know I've said a few times that I follow Michael Malice. Doesn't mean strictly that I believe anarchy has to win, must be the path, but you have to grapple with his ideas. But it's hilarious. Every time he has a stream and he is responding to his YouTube comments, Fed posts. See what happens. You are blocked instantly. Yes. Fed posts on his Twitter page. Blocked instantly. Friends don't let friends Fed post.
Yes, sir. That's correct. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the night when we're talking about Facebook and the misinformation, because that is one of the biggest stories from this last week, where we saw the government literally come out and say, Jen Psaki, the press secretary, come out and say that they're telling Facebook what to remove and what to censor on their own platform. So that was quite shocking. We'll take a look at that later. The next quick story of the day, this is a fun one. Just wanted to show you guys this real quick. I stumbled across this online. I don't have a really big narrative or story behind this, but I did think it was curious. Rise in oil prices immediately after Biden got into office. And I came across this chart. This shows active U.S. oil rigs sharply dropping off from about 650 to 700 to 200. So cutting into by almost 75% right after Biden got into office. So U.S. oil producers cut supply to drive up oil prices. That's what this person is claiming happening. Now they keep over half of pre-pandemic rigs shut down. By keeping oil supply below demand, they raise oil prices. Oil firms profiteering boosts inflation for all of us. So I guess the point is sharing this is hopefully just to make you aware that they are voluntarily shutting down these oil rigs, but also the inflation thing may not be as simple as we previously thought. Is there an incentive to boost inflation voluntarily? I don't know. I'm not an economics expert, but I just wanted to share this graph with you. Delaney, you don't even drive that much, do you? So you don't care about gas prices, huh?
I mean, I do because, I don't want to see people pay too much for gasoline and for their oil. And, even just it'll raise the price for a lot of different things because I remember my mom actually told me, she's like, there's a lot of things in this world that you wouldn't think have oil used to manufacture it, but it does. So I just
Almost
don't want to
everything, I
see
think, does.
Yeah, almost everything. Like this plastic cup, probably they used oil to produce it. So I just don't want to see the prices for anything go up just because these guys are trying to make money off of all of us, off the backs of us. When why not just open up all the rigs and allow us to have as much oil as we need.
Yeah, and I gotta do a little disclaimer on this story. I just found this chart like a couple hours ago. I didn't do any research into why these oil rigs may have shut down. There may be a good reason for that, so I'm not assigning any kind of particular motive here. I just think it's interesting to see a sharp decrease in that graph go down at exactly after Biden got into office. Thought that was something worth sharing with you guys.
And I remember I was talking about this to a friend on one of my Discord channels that I'm on, and he was saying like, "Oh, the president doesn't have any say so about oil prices," and I'm like, "Yeah, but the president shutting down pipelines that, allow us to transport oil from our northern friends to us. Yeah, he has a say over that, and that'll definitely drastically increase the cost of our oil." Shutting down rigs in our Gulf and shutting down rigs off of our coast, that definitely has a big say on how much our oil is going to cost. So yeah, you may not think the president has a lot of sway on that, but he actually does. So for people that think the president doesn't have any kind of sway on the oil prices, you're a little bit wrong on that. I mean, he shouldn't, but he kind of does.
Yeah, that's a good point. As soon as he came in, he immediately started taking actions to reduce our own ability to produce oil, which is a little strange. I don't know. There's probably some money changing hands there, with all these paintings that Hunter Biden is doing to the big sums of money transferring hands for unknown reasons. And also, when gas goes up, everything goes up because you need gas to transport everything else. So that
was another point I was going to make. We need gasoline and diesel fuel to transport our goods and services across state lines, across wherever. Also to fill our ships up to bring containers full of stuff to our country that are coming from being manufactured in China. So why not? Why are we going to shut down our ability to be self-sustaining and not rely on foreign oil to get our goods and services? Because if anything in America, we love capitalism, we love buying stuff. So why are we cuffing ourselves from being able to be self-sustaining and not have to rely on foreign entities for our oil supply?
It comes after the most pertinent lesson you could ever get in why globalization is a bad thing, why outsourcing is a bad thing, because look at what happened just last year with COVID. We couldn't even produce our own PPE. We were running to the stores because toilet paper shortages and things like that. You would think that if we were paying attention as a society, we would come together and collectively say, you know what, maybe we should really focus on, that's one of the big lessons learned from the COVID thing of 2020 is that we need to be able to produce our own stuff and not outsource it. And then what happens is as soon as the new administration gets in, we reduce our own ability to supply our own oil. So yeah, it's counterintuitive to say the least. Zen says no more fracking on public land as well. See, there you go. I wasn't aware of that. So
And then Dave says gasoline has gone up 50 cents in the last 3 months in Colorado. We can't produce it, but Russia can? Well, of course, because Russia doesn't have nearly as many restrictions when it comes to all that stuff because, they're evil and awful and terrible, but they're really not because, they just want to make a buck too.
That's right. And there's what is that new pipeline, Nord Express or something like that, there's some weird dealings going on with that in the Biden administration about, opening up pipelines for Russia while closing pipelines in America and North America down. I don't know. I got to look into that one a little bit more. But you know what's more interesting than pipelines? Because I don't have a better way to segue this. Monkeypox.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about the monkeypox.
Over 200 people in 27 states are now being monitored for monkeypox. Thank God, because you know what? I'm tired of COVID, to be honest. I am looking for a new pandemic to talk about, and monkeypox just kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit better than COVID. Monkeypox. Here we go. From the CDC, they're monitoring over 200 people for potential exposure to monkeypox after their contacts were traced with a Texan who contracted the rare disease while traveling to Nigeria weeks ago.
Uh-oh.
According to the state and local health officials are working with federal authorities to monitor those who were in contact with the monkeypox patient who flew into Atlanta airport on July 8th. It's just the start.
So bad.
It's the start of a pandemic movie, right? Oh, one guy comes across on an airplane with the disease, and then they got to find out where it came from. And then he then flew to Dallas Love Airport the next day. So if any of you guys flew, or were in the airport, Atlanta or Dallas on July 8th, you might want to take a look. 1 week later, he was diagnosed with a rare disease. Jesus, 1 week.
Jesus. Yeah, you might want to decontaminate yourself if you've ever flown out of Dallas.
Especially from Nigeria. So this one in particular can be transmitted through bodily fluids and respiratory droplets, according to the CDC, which by now we all know is a very trustworthy and credible source of information.
Oh, yeah.
Monkeypox has an incubation period of 3 to 17 days. Now, there's a picture here for those who aren't looking at the YouTube live stream. It's pretty rough looking. Boils all over the body, blisters that are about 1 centimeter in diameter, all over from the from the fingers down to the legs, covering this person's body. It doesn't look pleasant. I'll just say that. But
yeah, it looks like boils. Like it looks terrible. Like that poor fella, whoever has that looks awful. I would not want that on my body whatsoever, so I'm not going to Dallas.
The individuals who came into contact with the man include passengers who sat within 6 feet of the patient or used the mid-cabin bathroom during the overseas flight, so basically the entire flight. They will be monitored until July 30th, according to the report. Also included are airline workers and family members. So, briefly, to describe monkeypox, it's a virus that is related to smallpox, the only human virus to have been eradicated. It causes less severe illness than smallpox, but is still quite dangerous. The CDC said that the fatality rate for the strain of monkeypox seen in Dallas case is about 10%. 10% fatality rate. That's like 100 times deadlier than COVID.
Yep.
So, there you go.
But don't forget to wear your mask, folks, because you don't want to get the monkeypox either. It'll keep you safe.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if they can tie any of this stuff in, because with the Lambda, it's the Delta obviously wasn't scary enough for people to comply. So maybe they'll throw in a little monkeypox in with their mask and their mandates, justifications.
Yeah, it says those who contracted the disease experience fever, chills, swollen glands, and its namesake rash that spreads across the body. Yeah, that's a no for me, dog. No, thanks.
That's good stuff. Osis dropped a comment here.
It surprised me if some people were trying to inflate the price of gas inorganically, because if you recall, when the pandemic first started, the price of oil went down so far it was actually in the negative, and people would pay you to buy oil. So I think they're trying to make back some of their previous losses on that.
Ooh,
See?
that's a good point. Yeah. they want to make that money back because people weren't driving as much. And I mean, there were still like things being transported, through, big rigs and stuff like that. But people themselves weren't driving nearly as much as they were during the pandemic. So yeah, that makes sense that they want to make their money back because, it's all about the money. Got to make that money.
PG&E's back in the news. PG&E back
Uh-oh.
in the news again, and not in a good way, guys. PG&E's Pacific Gas and Electric, they run all of the electric on public electric, well, not all of it, most of it on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Hence the name Pacific Gas and Electric. And guess what? We have a repeat again of 2020. From AP, the size of Oregon wildfire underscores vastness of the U.S. West. Now, PG&E was responsible for a fire here that was roughly, at the last time I read, was 30,000 acres large. And although I think I may have copied the wrong article here, I did remember the most of the article. So PG&E found, they didn't come out and directly say they were responsible, but they said that they found a power line with a bunch of blown fuses with a tree leaning on it, and the tree was on fire at the base of the tree. Now, I don't think it takes... You don't have to be like a forensic incendiary expert or whatever they call the guys that, try to figure out how fire started to realize that, no, it definitely sounds like PG&E started yet another wildfire there. So, I like this story for multiple reasons because it ties into kind of our infrastructure narrative that we talk about here a lot, and how the infrastructure in America is crumbling. And when you have every single year, when you have infrastructure that is crumbling so badly that is causing devastation in like the millions and billions of dollars, costing lives, burning down literally tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of acres of the land, you may have a problem that needs to be addressed, but it doesn't seem like anybody's too interested in addressing those.
Yeah, and I mean, it also probably didn't help that a lot of that forest that burned was very dilapidated and not well maintained because our forest management here in California, and I think not all of Oregon, but some of Oregon, they haven't been really doing well with the forest management. That doesn't help either. So it's just throwing gasoline. Well, it's just throwing a match on just like gasoline soaked, paper. It's just bound to light up and cause all kinds of mayhem.
So I got an article that actually describes the story I was talking about here. So PG&E said in a report Sunday to the California Public Utilities Commission that a repairman responding to a circuit outage on July 13th spotted blown fuses in a conductor atop a pole, a tree leaning into the conductor, and a fire at the base of the tree. So my memory served me well. I remember that exactly correctly. But it doesn't seem like you have to really guess at that point if... that was the cause of the fire. But will it be fixed? And like you said, it's really, so let's do a critical thinking exercise here. Let's say we're running the government, Delaney. Okay, what do we address, and the audience, chat? What do you think? We have power over the state government. We can either tell PG&E to fix its stuff, or spend our budget on forest maintenance. What do you think is the proper path if you had to emphasize one?
I would say the forest maintenance first, and getting all the dead brush and all of the dead trees and all of the trees that are all the dead stuff that's easily flammable out of the way and get it cleared. That should be first in my eyes. But I know a lot of people would argue for fixing our power lines would be the way to go. But I think just having like all the dead forest around it is definitely not a very sustainable way to fix our infrastructure.
I would probably tend to agree. Let's get a good baseline of forest management down first, and then work on PG&E after. So PG&E equipment has been blamed for sparking some of the state's deadliest wildfires in recent years. Most of it will be the 2017 and 2018. So this has literally been every single year. Pretty much every single year for the last 5 years straight. When a series of wildfires burned down more than 28,000 buildings and killed more than 100 people. It emerged from bankruptcy last year after a series of deadly wildfires ignited by its long-neglected electrical grid prompted it to declare financial insolvency. And good old Newsom, Gavin, said he would wait to comment on the utility possible involvement until the investigation is completed. Thanks, Gavin, for having patience on
Yeah,
that.
thanks, Gavin.
I'm sure he. But listen to that: 28,000 buildings up in smoke because your infrastructure is terrible. Do you think there may be a problem with the infrastructure? That's the question. The only question I want you guys to have in your head as we cover stories like that. That's all.
Yeah, and Region Zen in the YouTube chat said, didn't they stop doing controlled burns? I think I read something about that. I don't think that they're doing controlled burns anymore like they used to. I remember when I was like younger, they would do controlled burns all across California. But of course, the climate alarmists come in and say, "Oh, that's going to cause more, climate change. Like we don't have enough trees to handle all that burning, forests." But no, we do. We have plenty of trees. Like if you've gone up and down the coast of California, there are a boatload of trees that can handle all that carbon emission.
I never saw or heard of anything relating to controlled burns while I was there for the 4 years or so that I was there.
Yeah, we used to have them all the time. I remember you drive by, going down I-5 down to SoCal from Sacramento, and there'd be like patches of, brush on the side of the freeway getting burned, a control burn. They have firefighters there to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand, all that stuff. But of course, the climate change folk, they're like, no, don't do that. That's bad. It's like, but what else do you want us to do? Do you want the rest of the state to burn? Or do you want us to do control burns where people are, there to make sure it doesn't get out of hand? Like
the climate change people win either way, because guess what? When the fires burn everything down, 28,000 structures, and then 100 people die, guess what they get to say? Well, this is a symptom of climate change. That's all. This is
they win no matter what.
They win either way, really.
At the end of it, yeah, unfortunately, and we don't want them to win because they're idiots.
The next story from Huffington Post is another fun one in our quick stories segment of the night. Texas Senate bill drops teaching requirement that Ku Klux Klan is, quote, morally wrong. This is a good one. It's been making rounds in mainstream media for a day or so since this passed, but I think this is a recent happening in a new political low. This is from Huffington Post. So now I specifically picked Huffington Post because I wanted you to hear the leftist kind of leaning view on this, right? Because it's more entertaining, right, to see the mental illness in action. In a new political low in Texas, the Republican-dominated state Senate has passed a bill to eliminate a requirement that public schools teach that the Ku Klux Klan and its white supremacist campaign of terror are morally wrong. Modern Democrats are praising this because they didn't want people to find out that the Ku Klux Klan was originally Democratic. Oh, nope, sorry, that was not in the article. That was just me editorializing. That was just
you, you editorializing and actually spreading the truth instead of lying to people.
That's the part they left out of the article. But the cut is among some 24 curriculum requirements dropped from the new measure, along with studying Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, the works of United Farm Workers leader Cesar Chavez, who called Mexicans wetbacks and said that we need to basically keep them out of America, Susan B. Anthony's writings about the women's suffragist movement and Native American history. Critics say the state is promoting anti-civics education.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, you guys can tell.
Totally.
Could you guys tell that I recently purchased a 3D printer based on the ads that you're seeing on the page? For this, yeah, but this was interesting because it raises a good question. It's a question that we already know the answer to, but it's a question that should, for those who are maybe not engaged fully, to ask themselves, whose responsibility is it to teach morality? Like, things like Ku Klux Klan is bad. Do you need a classroom teacher environment to know that, to learn that? Do you need a classroom teacher environment to learn that stealing is bad, that murder is bad, the morality of particular actions or groups? Why is... Now, I like this story because it shows, again, these people, the default setting is everything you need can be provided by the government. It's not the parents that should be teaching you morality or who was bad, who was good. It's the government, okay? There's no role of the parent in this picture. I don't know. What do you think, Delaney?
Nope. Yeah, I was just about to say, no, it's not up to the schools to teach you that this KKK and all these, terrible, terrible entities that exist in our country are bad. It's up to the parents. And uh, I don't know. It's sad that they don't want to actually teach history the way that they used to when I was younger. I didn't need my teacher to tell me that the white supremacy was bad. Like, that's just not something that I needed a teacher to tell me. It was my parents that, instilled in me the values that, like, hey, white supremacy bad. Any kind of supremacy bad. It's just they wanted to take the parents out of it, I guess, just like how they've always wanted to do with the schools.
Yeah, and it's good for them. They're getting two birds with one stone with this one because they're getting the CRT angle, critical race theory angle, where they can basically, they're losing on this, but they get the story, the narrative is a 2-in-1 for them because they get the CRT angle, plus they also get the parents out of the equation angle as well. So that's they're definitely upset at Governor Abbott. And okay, so here's a tweet from some mentally ill leftists on Twitter. Just to demonstrate what we're talking about here. Here's why Governor Abbott added critical race theory to the special session. He doesn't want our kids to learn that white supremacy is morally wrong. You read that right. We must trust our teachers. We must defend the truth in our classrooms. SB3 does the opposite. Again. School, I think here's what we need to do as a society. We need to kind of backtrack. We need to take a couple steps backwards, okay? And we need to actually define what the purpose of education is in America. Because right now, I think we have a definition mismatch. Now, for me, if I were to define education, public education in particular, it would be to make you economically viable to operate in our society. You have the knowledge to be productive and earn a living income. For these people, for the leftists, and this is where the fundamental, not disagreement, it's almost like a determinative state where they don't think about it, it's just where they default to, is that education is for teaching you what's right and what's wrong, what's morally right, what's morally wrong, who's evil, stuff like that. So we're at an impasse, a mismatch in what we think is the objective of public education.
Yeah, instead of teaching our kids how about reading, writing, arithmetics, science,
programming,
history,
mathematics,
programming,
economics, critical thinking.
technology, critical thinking. We just want to teach our kids that white people bad, black people good. Like, that's what they just want to indoctrinate our kids, and it's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable way of life. And then that's why we have all these adults coming out into the world going like, oh, I have my degree in gender studies. How come I can't get a job? Well, maybe because nobody wants to hire somebody with a freaking degree in gender studies.
Well, it's like Osa says in chat, why be economically viable? That creates inequality, right? Now, if we're all equally retarded, then we have no inequality, right? Because that's obviously that is the pinnacle of human existence is a state of pure equality. The power solution is titled Power Simple As to find ways to recycle with... Oh, okay, I see. Sorry, go ahead, Delaney.
I was going to say they want us to all be equally stupid and equally miserable, when it's instead of just being able to take control of your own life and get out of poverty and get out of feeling like you're unequal. Like, they just want us to all be equally dumb. Like, this is stupid.
Just stupid indeed. The bill echoes language from last month's law that bars teachers from requiring students to develop, quote, an understanding of the 1619 Project, which calls for a far more profound examination of the significance of slavery in American history. It also retains the language that teachers may not be compelled to discuss current events or, quote, controversial issues of public policy or social affairs, and that if they do, they can't give, quote, deference to any one perspective. Now, I got to point this out just because I see this kind of like with the code in the Matrix. This is what happens when you have a hyper-feminized version of education. You get an emphasis on talking about controversial issues, public policy, social affairs, because what is all that really? But when you boil it down, when you make it as simple as possible, it's talking about people. It's talking about, it's like gossip for a classroom type
Yep.
environment. That's really all it is. It's
I was-
it's feminine
I
at
was
its
just
core.
about to say the same thing.
And people don't see that. They just see people. They all they see is that, oh, teachers want to talk about controversial issues, public policy, social affairs because they want to push an agenda. No, you don't have to assume that there's necessarily an agenda to everything when they're already naturally predisposed to want to talk about people and gossip over science and hard facts. And you know, this is why we never ask the question, why are like 90% of teachers women? Why do we not want to try to correct that imbalance at all? They never get to that question because they don't realize the role that gender plays in the way that we're treating these public events and the way that public education is run.
Yep. I mean, we need to bring back shop teachers and woodworking teachers and teach our kids how to get skills, like how to use a freaking saw, how to use a freaking hammer, and how to build things with their hands instead of sitting around talking about things that children shouldn't be worried about. This kind of stuff. Like, this is the one thing that children should not, like, when they're in public school, when they're learning about how to become an adult, this is not something that they need to worry about. They don't need to worry about, I mean, they should worry about, you know, bills and stuff that are going to affect them, but this is just gossip. This is just like what women want to do all the time, is just sit around and drink their Mai Tais and gossip about stupid crap that really is insignificant as far as their ability to do stuff and be able to make a living and do things with their lives.
It's a bit ironic that they complain about inequality while emphasizing this kind of BS in public education, because that's exactly what you would do if you want more inequality, is to not teach people hard skills, not emphasize STEM, etc., etc. But hey, we all know that there's no persuasive element to calling out hypocrisy. And with that said, I think that'll wrap up our quick stories segments of the night. Gossip Girls. Yes, exactly, Doug. That is what that is. That's what teachers are. It's basically Gossip Girls. Teachers should teach kids to be business owners like Pakistan Middle Easterns. Is that what they do over there?
Yep.
Because, that's exactly what they should do.
Teach them to have good ideas and, you know, build the skills to make their ideas actually possible. Like, we don't teach our kids to, like, go around and, like, mow people's lawns and make $5 mowing people's lawns, or start a lemonade stand. You know, do things for your community and for your neighborhood that are actually going to benefit them, instead of going like, oh, we're going to just send you to college and get you $80,000 in debt for a gender studies degree or underwater basket weaving, or, you know, these stupid things that aren't going to actually get them anywhere in life.
You know what? It's almost like it's an issue of being too specific. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is, let's teach kids how civics works, not specific issues in civics. Like, oh, back in 1713, like, you need to know what happened back in 1619 because that's going to affect how successful you are today. No, it's not. It's really not. Sorry. But teach them how civics is supposed to work, not particular events like that.
Arian says we need to teach our girls always cook and clean for your man. I mean, yeah, bring back homemaking, and bring back the idea that women, yes, it's okay if women want to go into STEM and do science, technology, mathematics, engineering. There's always room for girls out there that are going to be
the
into those
masculinized
fields.
women.
But we also need to teach our kids, our girls especially, that it's okay to cook for your husband, clean for your husband, to take care of your children. Like, what happened to taking pride in taking care of your household and being a homemaker and knowing how to sew and knowing how to create things for your household that's going to benefit your husband, benefit your children? Like, it's awful what we're teaching our girls. Or now what we're teaching our girls is like, oh, go out and wear as little clothing as possible to get a man. It's like, no, you don't. No, that's not gonna pertain. That's not gonna get you anywhere in life.
I can't wait for the inevitable wave of single, depressed women who turn 40, in like 10, 15 years, that's going to be catastrophic. Oh my God. You know what?
I know.
Invest in cat food now. Not investment advice. We got a comment here from Osis.
Probably going to be surprising that I'm going to give, which is if you want to see the most equal multiracial, it's not a democracy, most equal multiracial country in our hemisphere, it would be Cuba. Cuba has the least inequality between black and white people of any place really in the hemisphere.
I don't know if there's more to this. He's
And that's largely due to socialism, which I'm sure no one wants to hear.
And that was the illustrious Nicole Hannah-Jones of the 1619 Project. Big surprise there.
well. See
I
now,
wonder if she's ever been to Cuba.
probably not. Jack Murphy, a guy on Twitter who I follow, he's a pretty big personality these days. He's on Timcast a lot. He went to Cuba. He documented it. He's got pictures of whiteboards where they've got the rations, your weekly rations or monthly rations. You get 5 eggs, huevos, 5 huevos every month. You get, so much grain, so much rice. Now, we were talking about Nicole Hannah-Jones and before the 1619 Project was even a big thing, because the same way we talk about Ibram Kendi, these are names you guys are going to want to know, okay? Because this is what the narrative is going towards. You're going to want to know who these people are, what they're trying to push. So pay attention, okay? Take notes. Get your crayons out, kids. Let's go to.
I love how people. I love how people preach about how Cuba is equal. It's equal. Like everybody's equal. There's not a lot of disparity between black and white. Have you ever been to Cuba? I mean, outside of the tourist
Well, you know
area,
what?
where
That could be an accurate statement.
Where
It could be accurate that they are the most equal, but they're all equal in squalor. She's not wrong.
Yeah, you're equal. You're equal living in. Mud huts
If
and
everybody has
dilapidated
nothing,
buildings.
that is technically total equality. I
That's
think
true.
that's pretty much what's going on there.
If everybody has a pile of rocks to live under, then yeah, that's definitely equal.
Yeah, no, it's Cuba's a whole big thing. That's I know I don't have any stories about Cuba on this particular show, but we all know what's going on in Cuba, right? It's the censorship is actually the most stunning part, and maybe we'll look into that a little bit later on next week's stream. But we're talking about South Africa later today, so I can only focus on one international issue.
Yep. Okay. We're
At
not
a
on our
time.
international. We're not on our international segment yet, folks. So stay tuned.
Before we get there, let's talk about climate change. We got one story on climate change today. And I'm getting errors in OBS that I'm getting dropped frames or something like that. I don't even care. You know what? Wojcicki can just take the drop frames and run with them. I do not care at all. This is a article. I don't know if this is a study or a journal. Let's call it a journal from Bjorn Lomborg, who, if you're not following Bjorn Lomborg, you guys need to follow this guy on Twitter. He is a scientist, climate change guy. He talks about climate change a lot. He's not a climate denier necessarily. When I say climate denier, I'm using that ironically, of course. Nobody's denying the climate exists, but what I mean is he acknowledges that humans can cause climate change, but also that it's not as bad as we think it is. Now, there's been a lot of talk recently about the fact that we've got more severe storms, we've got more wildfires, we've got, the crazy ice storm in Texas, the polar vortexes, all this stuff, the extreme weather. And people are using that, of course, to advocate for the increase of global warming, global climate change.
Yep.
Global warming is the 2005 version. The new revised version is climate change. Now, this is titled Welfare in the 21st Century, Increasing Development, Reducing Inequality, the Impact of Climate Change, and the Cost of Climate Politics. I just want to highlight a few passages from this here for you guys, from Bjorn Lomborg. Climate change is real, and its impacts are mostly negative, but common portrayals of devastation are unfounded. Scenarios set out under the UN Climate Panel, IPCC, show human welfare will likely increase to 450% of today's welfare over the 21st century. Climate damages will reduce this welfare increased to 434%. So instead of getting a 450% increase in welfare, we're only going to get a 434% because of the climate damages. I'm not too upset about that, personally.
Yeah.
Arguments for devastation typically claim that extreme weather like droughts, floods, wildfires, and hurricanes is already worsening because of climate change. This is mostly misleading and inconsistent with the IPCC literature. For instance, the IPCC finds no trend for global hurricane frequency and has low confidence in attribution of changes to human activity, while the U.S. has not seen an increase in landfalling hurricanes since 1900. Global death risk from extreme weather has declined 99% over 100 years, and global costs have declined 26% over the last 28 years. So the number of people dying from extreme weather events has decreased by 99% over the last 100 years. Does it sound like we're heading into like a devastating climate catastrophe with those kind of numbers?
I mean, personally, no. But Jeremy, what about like last week when we talked about all those old people that died because of the heat wave in Portland and they didn't have proper AC? Like, what about that? What about those? It's like 83 too many people that have died.
Yeah, no, 83. We need to total global control over the economy because 83 people died in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially what they're saying. Arguments for devastation typically ignore adaptation, which has been my argument all along, by the way. I'll say that. My argument has always been climate change probably does exist. I don't know how much is caused by humans, but we will out-adapt it. We will, necessity is the mother of invention. We'll figure out a way to get through it. That has always been my stance, and it seems that Bjorn is in agreement with me there. While climate research suggests that fewer but stronger future hurricanes will increase damages, fewer but stronger hurricanes. This effect will be countered by richer and more resilient societies. Now, the problem with Bjorn in this article here that you guys need to understand is that he's looking at way too many variables, like future richer societies, more resiliency, adaptation. How often do you hear those terms thrown around in climate change conversation?
I don't ever hear that.
Never,
except for coming from me. I'm the person that's like, that we're just going to adapt and overcome these things, right? And people are like, no, we're too stupid to adapt and overcome. It's like, oh, okay. Tell that to our ancestors that adapted and overcame everything that came before us. I guess they didn't survive. That's why we're here.
Yeah, and let's see, because they give out what percentage? They give out temperature increases. Oh, we need 1.2% Celsius by 2050 for the Paris Climate Accord or whatever it is. They don't want to talk about any other of these variables because what happens? They'll introduce an extreme level of doubt into their entire narrative. Climate economic research shows that the total cost from untreated climate change is negative but moderate, likely equivalent to a 3.6% reduction in total GDP. Now, this is where the juicy part comes in, and I'm going to kind of tie this in with COVID and tie this in with really the whole kind of alt-centrist philosophy in general. Climate policies, he says, have also had costs that often vastly outweigh their climate benefits. Have we had any stories recently? Hey, quiet down back there.
Sorry.
Have we had any stories or events recently that may also teach us the story that policies are more damaging than the actual thing we're trying to correct with the policies? Maybe COVID. I mean, we saw businesses being destroyed, the economy being shut down. Our reaction in policy form is oftentimes, it seems, more destructive than the actual thing we're trying to fix. And this is exactly what Bjorn is trying to say here. When we try to fix things through central planning, it's worse than if you would just let us to be free and adapt as individuals and as communities to whatever it is we're adapting to. That's, I think, kind of the main point that I wanted to get across here with that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like, I've always believed that, we as humans are ridiculously smart for being mammals on this planet. And we have the capability to figure out ways to adapt and overcome these environmental issues that people are so strongly for. But the people who are about the centralization of figuring this stuff out can't even wrap their brains around that, like, individually we can fix all these problems that we're having. It's like, no, we need the government, we need some kind of entity to force individuals into compliance with these environmental rules. And that's just, no, that's not the way to go, guys. It's not the way to go.
There's something fundamental about the psychology of people who end up being leftists, and I use that terminology very intentionally, who end up being leftists, because I think politics in general is largely deterministic. Okay, you are born, and then you are put into conditions in society where you experience certain things, and then probably the outcome of that, your political stance and how you view the world, is like 90 to 95% predetermined. And there's something in the way that these leftists end up becoming leftists that also has an element of not believing that people can make decisions or think for themselves. Because you look, this is underlying every policy that they have, whether it's education, where we can't trust people to teach themselves that the KKK is bad. We have to tell them. We can't trust people themselves to do research on COVID and take the proper measures. We have to tell them how to do it. We can't trust people to do climate change and adapt as they see fit. We have to tell them how to do it. So that's really, and I'm still trying to figure out where that fits in the whole psychological model of the leftist, but there's something there that underlies every policy they have, where they inherently do not believe that other humans are capable of thinking and acting with their own agency. And maybe it's like an element of projection because they have no agency. And you see this with especially the black issues. The black people, they have no ability to choose their own actions. They're just, they get assaulted by police. It wasn't their choice to run. It wasn't their choice to resist. It wasn't their choice to be poor. Mm-hmm. It's an element of agency that really goes into it. And I think I like seeing that in stories as far away from social issues like that, such as climate change, because it shows that there is really, truly an underlying psychological factor there that we can see present in every single subject that we cover.
Yep. Yeah, they're just invading all walks of life. They just, for people like these, I don't really understand if these people really do believe in freedom, because they say they do, but they don't seem to really believe that humans are capable on their own agency to make their own decisions and make their own choices and do what's best for themselves and do what's best for the environment and do what's best, for their family. They have to be told. It's like, okay, well, what it's like trying to tell a 5-year-old what to do. They're not going to do it unless you force them. So I think that's where their mindset comes from. They treat us all like we're 5-year-olds still, and that we aren't adults and we're not capable of deciding on for our own selves what's going on and how we're going to handle it.
Yeah, I like that. Treating us like 5-year-olds.
Yeah, they really are. It's like, you don't know what's best for the environment. I do, even though I run my AC all day long and I, throw styrofoam in the trash, even though I know it's bad. These people.
Nobody cares about recycling anymore.
Yeah, I mean, these are the people. They want to regulate and do all these things against us and force us to believe what they believe, but they don't actually do it themselves. Most of them.
So let's throw out some numbers just so you guys can get an idea of what we're talking about here. Using carbon taxes, an optimal, realistic climate policy can aggressively reduce emissions and reduce the global temperature increase from 4.1 Celsius in 2100 to 3.75 degrees Celsius. So we're talking about a 0.3, roughly 0.25, 0.35 degrees Celsius drop. This will cost $18 trillion, but deliver climate benefits worth twice that. The popular 2 degrees Celsius target, in contrast, is unrealistic and would leave the world more than $250 trillion worse off. So, see, this is why I like Bjorn, because he's not saying don't take any action, don't care about it, it's not going to matter anyway in 100 years. He's saying, look, here's an optimal version of climate change actions that we can do that's not going to be devastating to our economy and completely, regulatorily speaking, restrictive. So there you go, 18 trillion over, 100 years instead of, 80 years at this point, instead of 250 trillion for a 0.35 degrees Celsius decrease.
So are these
Which,
climate...
who even knows what that means? Who nobody cares about 0.35 degrees Celsius, 2 degrees Celsius. It doesn't mean anything to the normal person.
Are these climate policies that they want to enact? Are they going to actually enact them onto the biggest emitters like China and India? Because if we're going to be realistic about it, those are the bigger polluters than, say, the United States. And
Bjorn would say Bjorn would impose these controls on China and India. Now everybody else who Bjorn is going against obviously would never even suggest that China is producing one carbon at all. Just not even one carbon atom.
Yeah, they're not polluting. That's why when they had the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, they had to put carbon catchers on the top of their skyscrapers to try to help with the smog emissions. That's besides the point.
It is pretty cool though. It's uniquely dystopian. I think that's pretty sweet. If you have to suck the smog out of your air just to make it marketable for capitalistic society. Anyway, let's jump to comments in the chat and then we'll go to the next segment.
It's not that we're too stupid to overcome. It's that they're too stupid to overcome. It's people, they don't have any concept of creation beyond like kiddie porn or something. Actually making something useful, working with their hands is beneath them. So, kiddie porn, cool. Rainbow colored monkeys with dildos aimed at children.
Oh yeah,
cool.
I saw that.
Coming for your kids, implicitly calling you a bigot. That's cool. Actually, taking on a challenge beyond authoritarian, draconian ideas. Nah, dog.
Maybe you're onto something there. They don't create anything. They exist solely to destroy and to kind of corrode what already exists. There may be something there. I'm gonna play with that one as I theorize this out. Paul.
Yeah, this psychological model you're talking to, I don't remember where I posted this. Sort of one of the hallmark differences between left and right people, broadly. People on the left are comfortable with received opinion. They're comfortable subordinating their opinion or authority and things like that. In a way, they're comfortable with their chains. A corollary or just a related principle to go over is that I think a lot of people in the world, they mirror image. They sort of think other people think like them. So, of course, they're comfortable with their chains. Why would you not be comfortable with these chains? And people on the right are the commander of their life, captain of their own ship, however you want to put it. Jesus is their co-pilot. You can go there a lot of ways, but I think that is one of the philosophical divides.
There you go. Yep, I think we're narrowing it down. He's got one more follow-up here.
Man, Osis's comments got me fucking hard right there. It's this joke is about socialists or communists, but let's just say leftist. Let's not beat around the bush. A leftist is someone who wants everything that's yours, your money, mostly your stuff, except for your job. Yeah, they don't want your dirty fingernails, or scrapes. They don't want your, just fucked up knuckles.
Yep.
They don't want your work boots. That's the one possession they don't want. Your fucking work boots. That's a leftist.
Yep.
Indeed. Again,
they don't want to get dirty and
creation.
Dig trenches.
Yeah, they don't want to create anything, even if it's by force. Be forced to create something. All right, let's go to the next COVID segment. Everybody's favorite. Let's see.
Yep.
I don't know. Are we censored on stereo, or why aren't we getting any detractors coming in here and talking trash? I mean, literally, the title of the stereo stream is "Nobody Cares About COVID Anymore." Maybe.
I think people are just coming in, seeing the title, seeing that it's like, a somewhat brown person talking to a white person. They're just like, oh, racist, moving on.
Yeah, my whole plan with stereo was to try to bait disagreement, but nobody. And this is completely public, open to anybody, and nobody's come in and dropped any kind of comments or disagreements, questions,
Yeah.
anything. It's
No drive-by white supremacists like we're used to. None of that.
well,
Dang, I was looking
even when we
forward
were
to being
getting
called a white
those,
supremacist again.
even when we were getting the drive-by comments, I was expecting a lot more. So it's never been as really as good as I expected. My expectations for stereo have not been met. Anyway, let's go to L.A. County. You guys probably already heard this one, but I think this is hilarious, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that the LA County Sheriff, just like in Sacramento when we had local leadership trying to impose new restrictions, new mandates, whatnot, the sheriff was not having it. Los Angeles Sheriff refuses to enforce new indoor mask mandate. If I can actually pull the story up over here from Huffington Post again, because I love to get the leftist mentally ill twist on the stories for higher entertainment value.
Yeah.
Alex Villanueva falsely declares the policy is not backed by science. Oh, that's what got Huffington Post angry, was the fact that the LA Sheriff said that it was not backed by science. And I would say that his tactic was a complete success there, because he was trying to piss off the leftists by saying that. And we'll get into his full statement here. So I guess let's go ahead and read his full statement before we get into Huffington Post's opinion on it. LA County Health Officer order modification masking while indoors from July 16, 2021, forcing the vaccinated and those who already contracted COVID-19 to wear masks indoors is not backed by science and contradicts the U.S. CDC. The LA County Department of Public Health has authority to enforce the order, but the underfunded/defunded LA County Sheriff's Department will not expend our limited resources and instead ask for voluntary compliance. We encourage DPH to work collaboratively with the Board of Supervisors and law enforcement to establish mandates that are both achievable and supported by science. So he took two pot shots right there by saying this isn't achievable in the first place. But not only is that not achievable, it's not even supported by science. And this is great, because who were some of the earliest people calling out the contradictions between what the CDC and the WHO and local authorities and state authorities were saying? Right here. We were showing you guys articles
I was going to say us.
side by side of like the WHO saying one thing, CDC saying another thing, local health saying another thing. And this is, now we're seeing like the manifestation of that. And of course, leftists are losing their minds. So let's go back to Huffington Post here. Sheriff Alex Villanueva said in a statement Friday that he will not expend our limited resources to enforce the new order. The new local mandate is not a contradiction of CDC policy, says the mentally ill leftists at Huffington Post. The CDC does not currently recommend that vaccinated individuals wear masks indoors, except where required by law. As cases of the dangerous and highly contagious... Oh, here we go. This is gotta get the fear-mongering in there. As cases of the dangerous and highly contagious. They can't just say as cases of the Delta variant. They have to say as cases of the dangerous and highly contagious Delta variant of COVID-19 soar. They're soaring, guys. Higher than the eagles have ever soared. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky said at a White House press briefing on Friday that localities experiencing increases in cases may consider reinstating indoor mask mandates to protect against the disease. The World Health Organization still urges fully vaccinated people to wear masks. Oh, man.
I guess that whole defunding the police didn't really work out in their favor when it came to all this.
Well, see, that's another aspect of leftist psychological profiling, is that they do not have the ability to look into the future. They are immediate gratification people. Okay, that's they don't think about the fact that, well, mask mandates are going to be enforced by the same people we want to try to defund right now, but it feels good to want to try and defund them right now because, ACABs, all cops are bastards, all that kind of stuff. But when we want to enforce mask mandates, well, who's going to be around to do that for us? They never thought about that.
Yeah, they didn't really look ahead and think like, maybe defunding the police when we want to enforce mask mandates on people really wasn't a good idea. Because I mean, the sheriff is right. He's like, look, we've got way worse things to worry about in the LA County than freaking people not wearing their masks. We've got high murder rates, we have high crime rates. There are homeless people dying on the sidewalks because of drug overdoses. You've got buildings burning. You've got all kinds of suffering going on in this city that has nothing to do with COVID, and you guys want us to go in and enforce mask mandates on people who are already vaccinated and they have the free choice to put a mask on or not. That's just ridiculous. It's ludicrous. Why are you asking us to do this if you're vaccinated? If you're vaccinated, you're fine, or you should be. If that's why you got vaccinated, correct?
You would think, yeah. It doesn't seem like the vaccine is doing its job. Zen asks in the YouTube chat, do you guys think they're going to try lockdowns again? It kind of looks that way. I think they will, but it's going to be on a local level. It's not going to be like a national level. I think some states have already been. That's a foregone conclusion that no more lockdowns. You know, places like Florida, Texas, which is one of the reasons why I'm in Texas right now, because I didn't. I like going to the gym. You know, I like going out to eat. I haven't worn a mask personally in probably almost 2 months, so it's been great. But
it's been great for me too. I haven't worn a mask really anywhere either, except for when I got called out by a family member for not wearing a mask. But otherwise, I went into Costco the other day without a mask on, and nobody said crap to me because they just assume that I'm vaccinated, and I'm not going to show them a stupid little card that says I've been vaccinated. No, like they just assume. So I'm just like, yes.
That's against WHO recommendations that you need to wear a mask even though you're vaccinated, which is just so pathetic. It doesn't really instill confidence in the vaccine if you're telling me I still need to wear a mask while I'm vaccinated. But we're seeing the rise of breakthrough cases now. I don't have any particular numbers for you guys today because I'm still kind of investigating. I'm looking around. I'm seeing how it's going. I will be covering the breakthrough cases probably next week because we're getting the data now. They're starting to actually track this. Breakthrough cases meaning people who have been vaccinated but are now getting COVID. Okay, now we already knew. We told you guys way from the start that this vaccine was never going to stop anybody from getting COVID. Although there was a common misconception that it would, as a traditional vaccine would. It's just a simply prophylactic technique to prevent you from getting severe symptoms. And we're seeing people actually get... now, the media is calling people conspiracy theorists, and they're saying things like, oh, people have a strange fixation on Israel right now because of that very reason. We're seeing the rise of breakthrough cases in countries like Israel that are highly vaccinated, like 70, 80% vaccinated, but still seeing cases. So
sorry,
your dog does not like the vaccine. I can tell, and that's fine.
No, he doesn't. Well, here's the other dog in the house barking at something. So now he's got to come in. He's got to go and investigate.
All right, let's jump to Lambda. That's right, yeah, Lambda variant, folks. Watch out for the Lambda. And Dari says in the YouTube chat, it's not the Delta variant, it's the Indian variant. Another thing.
No, it's Aryan says that it's the Indian variant.
Oh, I thought I said Aryan. But yeah, no, that's what I've always said too, man. I don't like to use euphemisms. Let's not, let's call it what it is. It's the Indian variant. We got Sneaky Pete here.
What's going on? I heard you say no
Pete?
one's dropping in and saying anything, so I figured, I'd stop by and say hi.
Appreciate that.
But, no one, there's people out there that still care about this shit that's going on. But I hope y'all are doing good, enjoying your night, and I hope both of you, your loved ones, are doing all right.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, Sneaky Pete. Appreciate that,
man. Hope you're enjoying the show. Paul.
Yep.
Hey, COVID. It's me. It's Pauly B. I know I've disrespected you, said a lot of mean things, kind of don't take you seriously, but you did infect an aide of Nancy Pelosi. We can make amends. You know what to do.
You know what to do.
My question is, what are they going to do when black people don't want to get vaccinated and don't want to wear masks anymore?
It's a good
What are
question.
they going to do? Do they want to not have the police intervene or do they want to enforce their mask mandates? It's going to be it's going to be like that meme of the guy pushing the button, sweating bullets, trying to make a decision.
Yes, exactly. And it's funny because, the same people that argue that the police should be defunded and shouldn't have, a role in society, they go directly to the police to enforce their mask mandates. But you bring up a really good point in that a lot of people don't know this because nobody covers it, nobody talks about it, but the blacks are very vaccine hesitant. They're probably the largest. I don't know if they're the largest racial group that's the least vaccinated, but they're up there. They really do not like the vaccine. And now you're saying that you want the police to enforce vaccine or mask mandates. We're not at vaccination mandates yet. We're seeing corporate vaccination mandates to some degree, but give it some time. Give it some time. Again, the leftists they don't have the capability to extrapolate into the future and see how these things are going to end up.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of independent journalists do man on the street interviews with people, and I've noticed that when they interview, the black people, they ask them have you gotten your vaccine yet? And most of them say no because they don't want to become a zombie. So yeah, I agree. You don't want to become a zombie. You don't
know if it'll turn you into zombie, but that would be cool if it did. Just saying.
I mean, it would be cool, but at the same time, I don't agree with the zombie thing, but I agree you don't want to put something in your body that you don't really know what it is and if it's actually going to work. What's the point of doing all that if it's not going to really protect you? I mean, I get if you're you're a healthcare worker or you're working in a school and it's for your job, I totally understand that. But at the same time, it's if it's your job is not dependent on you getting this stupid thing, then I understand the hesitancy.
Stalking Horse says in the chat, it brings up a good point that the Texas Democrats that jetted to D.C., you guys heard about that story, right? They jetted to D.C. to circumvent a vote on something or other. But anyway, they all flew in a plane together and they got grilled for being on a plane without masks on. And then guess what happens? 3 or 4 of them got COVID and they were all breakthrough cases because they were vaccinated. Idiots. Oh man, that's good. All right, anyway, what's up, Phil? Welcome to the chat, buddy. Sneaky Pete's got another comment here.
Because of HIPAA, they're not allowed to ask that.
Oh, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Pete, because we are going to be talking about that HIPAA thing. But we got another comment here from MC Gilbert. He's got a very colorful avatar, so this could be good.
So there's a valid reason for calling it the Delta variant instead of the Indian variant, and it's because they've had several variants come out of India. So just calling it the Indian variant doesn't really give the appropriate specificity, and having a distinct name per variant makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
It's a logical argument, but if you got one predominant strain, that came out of that particular country, I think it makes sense to call it an Indian variant. But yeah, no, that's actually a good argument. I wasn't aware that there were multiple strains that we're talking about here. And he just dropped another follow-up.
So being vaccinated does protect you against the virus. It protects you against the Delta variant. Yes, it's still possible to get it. Yes, they do have breakthrough cases, but the overwhelming majority of cases now that are hospitalized and almost all of the deaths are from people who are unvaccinated. And even if you And so even though you can still catch it while you're vaccinated, your body fights it off much quicker, and so asymptomatic spread is reduced dramatically if you're vaccinated.
Well, here's the interesting thing about that. I don't have the numbers for Israel on tonight's docket, but you're seeing percentages like 80% of them are vaccinated, and they're getting a lot of breakthrough cases. Now, you're correct on the deaths part. The deaths, because I watched a very strange CNN segment where people repeated for like 5-10 minutes straight, coronavirus has killed 607,000 people. 99% of the deaths are from unvaccinated people. And then they would show like clip from Tucker Carlson saying like, oh, vaccinations are bad. And then they would just repeat that like for 10 minutes straight. It was very strange. I don't know if that's normal for CNN. Maybe I'll show you guys a clip on the next show. Very weird. But yes, no, the deaths are indeed from the unvaccinated. However, do you notice how kind of the focus is shifted? The focus is really on reopening, getting the economy back open, getting everything back to normal, right? Getting back to normal. That's what we all want, right? Isn't it? Okay. Now, what was the one factor that was preventing us from getting back to normal? Does anybody remember? Pop quiz. Does anybody remember why we had to lock down? What the lockdowns were based off of? In many cases, the single variable that made us all lock down. Does anybody remember?
Hospital beds.
Bed. Yes, hospital bed vacancy. And it's kind of strange that nobody's talking about that anymore, isn't it? That's a little weird, because guess what? The hospital bed capacity is not an issue really anymore, and we're seeing now the new propaganda as of like yesterday, is that cases are up 50% across the nation because of the Delta variant. Ooh, Delta variant, 50%. And now we talked about this last stream. I think Moneypenny dropped some stats, and I kind of, pushed back a little bit on her, saying that you give me percentages as stats, and I don't care anymore. COVID made me not care about percentages. You know why? Because they try to say things like 50%, oh God, watch out, look out, Delta. But when you look at the numbers, like Texas, for example, it went up from 2,000 to 3,000. That's their 50%. It's not. We're not talking about like 500,000 to 750,000. We're talking 2,000 to 3,000. Okay, that's not significant, and there's a reason they phrase it as 50%, because when they say we have 1,000 more, nobody cares, because they shouldn't care, because that's not care worthy, and that's exactly why we have the stream title on stereo. Nobody cares about COVID anymore.
Yep. Yeah, when you throw out percentages like 200% increase, oh yeah, that's going to scare people, because oh my God, 200%, that's a lot. That's a whole lot. When you actually look at the nitty gritty, the numbers, it's like, oh yeah, 200% more from 50 is a lot. It is 200%, but in actuality, it's not as much as you would think.
Anthony, I got to give Anthony Cuzza a honorary win for the answer to my question of why we had to lock down, and his answer was the fatties. Pretty much.
I was just about to ask, like,
pretty much right.
All the people that had died because they were unvaccinated. Well, were they also, like, how was their health otherwise? Were they?
No, we can't address
were they
that.
Fat?
Can't
were they
address
fat?
that.
Did they have a drinking problem? Were they smokers? Did they have heart disease? Did they have kidney failure? Like, what else was going on? Because, I mean, how old were they? Age has a big play, because if they were like young people that were unvaccinated and they were dying because of COVID, that's alarming, because I'm a pretty young person. I'm not as young anymore, but still, if it's like an increase because of if it's like unvaccinated old people that are dying, it's like, well, yes, that's sad, but at the same time, like, they're old. So what can I do about that?
Well, that's one of the reasons why America saw so many cases, and what we still refuse to address, and what I would like to see, I'd be so happy to see just a breakdown of the deaths. So we got it. We got the data, right? We have to have the data. So why not just tell me, in the same way that I could look at, like the Washington Post, for example, has a database that you can search with different criteria, like police violence and police shootings and stuff like that. Give me a COVID version of that, where I can narrow it down to say COVID deaths, was vaccinated, was not vaccinated, was obese, wasn't obese, was over 65, was under 65, and let's get a real look at the numbers. Because if you're trying to tell me that 99% of the deaths are from unvaccinated people, I would have no complaints about accepting that, but tell me some characteristics of that 99%. Tell me what these people are like, because I can guarantee you a large majority of them are either fat, extremely fat, obese, or old, and over 65. So, but the reason they're not telling you that kind of issue information, or some other underlying condition, the reason they're not telling you that level of granularity in the data is because then you'll understand that it's not really a major issue for a normal person. But they want you to think it's a major issue for a normal person, because, that way they can push these mandates and stuff like that. Now, is my argument, is this some kind of conspiracy theory? Is it, did I, at any point in time, did I say the government's trying to microchip you, or, Bill Gates
No.
wants to turn you into a robot or a zombie, or, anti-vax? No. Simply asking questions, because we all know, even the guy in stereo, he knows we have that level of granularity in the data to show how many of the people dying were obese over 65, but they don't tell you, they don't show you. I'd love to hear an explanation for why he thinks that we don't get told that information. And actually, he has a follow-up comment right here, so maybe let's see.
So if we had widespread mask usage and everybody wore masks, vaccinated or not, then there would have really never been a need for lockdowns. You can see this in places like South Korea and Japan, where they have incredibly high population density, far more than in most places in the United States. But like everybody that wore masks, they didn't see it was a big deal. They didn't have a problem with it. They didn't have to shut anything down. They didn't have any kind of shutdowns, and even though there's starting to see a few rises in cases there, they're still not doing any shutdowns because they don't need to, because everybody wears masks, and so their spread is really, really low.
So as far as the numbers go, I would urge you to look at Japan's graph over time, because that's not 100% conclusive with what you're saying. That's not necessarily true. But also, you can't say look at North Korea. Look at Korea, not North Korea. North Korea, they've got an embargo on DMZ. Or they got our COVID. You can't, no COVID allowed in there. But South Korea and Japan, first of all, there's not a single obese person in either of those countries, so nobody's dying to that. Secondly, those are like the most advanced technologically, countries on the planet. Literally, they're the cleanest. They're the most advanced. They're the most homogenous culture. They are. There's various other factors involved that gives them the resiliency that America does not have, and the fact that they're concentrated, I would argue, is more of a strength, not a weakness in their case, because when you are concentrated like that and you have the ability to all take action at a collective time, then it doesn't have the ability to jump around, spread around, and fly around and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think it's really useful to compare us to South Korea or Japan for those reasons.
I was going to say, very rarely do you encounter people in Japan and South Korea that are like morbidly obese, besides like sumo wrestlers. And even those sumo wrestlers are healthy. Like they eat right.
Yes, the sumo wrestler argument. I love it.
They like to eat, but they're not eating a bunch of processed food. They're not, you don't see a widespread cases of like diabetes in Japan and heart disease in Japan. Why? Because their diet is actually pretty dang good, and they're, like you said, they're pretty homogenous, not just like, skin color, but also just their culture. Of course, when the Japanese government tells them, hey, you should wear a mask and, sanitize and take care of your cleanliness, they're going to comply, because they're very much about the collective. They're very much about taking care of their families and stuff like that. So, yeah, it makes sense that Japan and South Korea had a better experience, because, yeah, their culture is very much ingrained in, taking care of everybody around you. And they're, like you said, Jeremy, they're also very, very clean over there. There's not a lot of trash. There's not people pooping in the streets and peeing in the streets. There's none of that going on over there as well. So, and there's not a lot, you don't see hobos dying on the sidewalks because of drug overdoses either.
And Osis says that they also made you stay in your room and install tracking software on your phone. So there's other trade-offs, where you can say, well, you got a little more freedom here. But also, I have to go back to the point about the hospital beds, because again, this guy's saying that we could have not locked down because of the masks. Well, again, the single variable, the reason why we locked down was the hospital bed capacity. Why do we have hospital beds at capacity? Because obese and old people are experiencing severe symptoms of COVID. I would argue that if people weren't fat, we would have had no lockdowns. But again, that's, we're actually looking at the root cause, because if you want to go to lockdowns and why we needed lockdowns, the reason why was hospital bed capacity. So you have to investigate the hospital bed capacity, why the hospital beds were full, You can't just point to Japan and South Korea and say, well, look at what they did. They did masks. No, a
Yeah.
lot of other variables involved.
Hmm.
But
And I mean, they do have in Japan, I know they have a huge population of elderly people. You know, a lot of the centenarians, like the people who are over 100, come to Japan. But guess what? The people that are over 100 years old that live in Japan, those guys are healthy. The reason that they're over 100 years old is because they eat right, they exercise, they don't, you know, they're clean, they take care of their health. That's why they're over 100 years old and not filling their diet with a bunch of processed foods like we are here in the United States of America.
Yeah, I think people, over 65 in America, you're just like skirting, barely crawling over the finish line because you're nearly dead by the time you even get there. Because if you've eaten so much corn syrup your whole life, your body's already embalming itself by the time you get that old.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good situation. But anyway, let's go to. Appreciate the comments though on the stereo. Keep them coming, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
We like pushback. We like different perspectives and things like that. Now, we had a comment here about HIPAA from who was it?
It was Sneaky Pete.
Sneaky Pete. Yeah. So this is something that I want to clear up for a lot of you guys, and I have a perspective on this because I work in and have worked in healthcare, cybersecurity. And so I know the regulations, I know the privacy stuff. HIPAA is something where we're talking about in the context of a restaurant asking you for your status of vaccination to let you in. That's going to be a big thing now as we see the controls being pushed down to the corporations, the companies, the businesses, instead of, from the government, which, as a lesser of two evils, I'll take that. That's fine. But people are being turned away from businesses because they do not have vaccinations. Now, is it illegal for a business to ask you your vaccination status because of HIPAA?
Nope.
Yes or no? Now, we've talked about
No.
this before, so you already know the answer, Delaney. Kind of cheating.
No, it's.
But you
Yeah,
are
I know.
correct. So, HIPAA, let me pull up this article here. HIPAA regulates the relationship of a healthcare provider or insurance provider and its relationship with your health information, not your relationship with your health information. If you give out your health information, it's completely voluntary. You don't have to. And if somebody asks you anything related to your health, you can or cannot give that out. There's no HIPAA involved. Now, if the business, for example, if you tried to walk up to a bar and they said, "Are you vaccinated?" Like, we're going to call your healthcare provider and find out. And they called the healthcare provider and then they asked them without your consent, that would be a HIPAA violation. But asking you directly as an individual your vaccination status or any health information, there's no HIPAA involved because HIPAA does not regulate your personal individual's relationship with your health information. It's with a healthcare provider and your information that they hold and they store. So I want to clear that up. Although I do think that it's the proper mindset to have to say that, oh no, this is a violation of HIPAA when somebody asks you this kind of stuff, because you don't want to be giving that information out. And HIPAA obviously is the first kind of go-to thing that you can say to try to deny that dirty bar's request for your vaccination information. But it's not against the law. It's not a HIPAA violation for them to do that. So I gotta, as you guys know, we are the objective observers here. We have to report the truth when we can.
Yeah, if your healthcare provider shares your personal medical information, that's a violation of HIPAA. But a place of business asking you, "Hey, what's your vaccination status?" That's not a violation of HIPAA. You can say, I don't want to tell you because it's none of your business. You have the free will to tell them to F off. But them asking you, no, I mean, they have the right to serve whoever they want, even though I think it's stupid. People should, you should be free to go into a place of business and give people your money all you want, but it's not a violation of any kind of HIPAA law or any kind of HIPAA regulation, unfortunately.
So, USA Today has a quick fact check. Businesses can legally ask if patrons have been vaccinated. HIPAA does not apply. The claim is that HIPAA prevents anyone from asking you if you are vaccinated, as mask wearing and social distancing guidelines are for fully vaccinated people Sorry, let me start that over again. As mask wearing and social distancing guidelines relax for fully vaccinated people, businesses are now navigating to how to implement new policies in their stores. Many businesses are ending mask requirements only for fully vaccinated customers. Vaccine opponents, including Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, are using the occasion to resurrect the false claim the HIPAA federal privacy law protects individuals from being asked about their vaccination status.
Of course of course they gotta go after MTG, man.
That's
They gotta
exactly
go
what I was
after
gonna
her.
say. Yeah, they're just like, oh, that's all this article really is. You can't just give me the HIPAA information. You gotta try to take a shot at Marjorie. Jesus, come on. Green is not the only one spreading this claim, which has spread widely on social media in recent days. The rule is simple: HIPAA protects every American from disclosing any of their health records to anyone. Claims an image posted on Instagram, May 13th. The poster clarified she was referring to vaccine and mask requirements in her caption. She, quote, "If anyone asks for your vax status, tell them they have no right to know," she wrote. "This is authoritarianism, by the way, literally communistic." I don't know about
I mean,
that
she's not
necessarily,
wrong.
but
You can. It's not communistic, but you don't have to disclose your information. If somebody asks you, you can just say
Right.
that's none of your business.
that's
You're
the-
free to tell people, hey, it's none of your business. What doesn't? I'm coming in here to buy steak from Costco. What is it of your business for you to know my vaccination status? That's why whenever people ask me, I'm like, well, when was the last time you were tested for HIV? So it's. Yeah, you have the right to tell them to F off, just like I've been saying. Like they can ask you, but you don't have to tell them.
The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, is a law that prevents healthcare professionals from sharing private health information without the patient's permission. So that's where HIPAA is relevant. When you are a patient and you are giving your health information to an entity for them to take care of. That's where HIPAA is relevant. So, although I hate to agree with this narrative, and I hate to agree that they're, with the whole pot shots at Marjorie Taylor Greene, she is wrong on this. HIPAA does not apply here. This is not against the law. And also, as exactly you said, Delaney, you have the option to simply walk away. The business is not required to give you service, and you are not required to give your health information to them. So, that's the trade-off. If you don't like the bar asking you for your health information, just go next door. Or you could take the 5 minutes and print up a vaccination card with 80-pound cardstock in your home printer. Just saying, not that difficult. You guys can. It's not like there's a state of society where you're gonna have to kind of skirt some rules, play a little shady, play a little fast and loose with stuff. Okay, you can't be by the books on everything and expect to live the same type of life that you did before. We are now entering that stage of the dystopian fall of society where you got to play a little shady, and part of that does involve making things like a vaccination card or a fake one. If you want to get into the bar, okay, if you really wanted to get into that bar, then just make a card. It's not that hard. We got a comment here from MC Gilbert.
You are absolutely right. You are entirely free to not have to tell anybody if you are vaccinated or not, if they ask. But as a private business, they are also free to refuse service to you for really any reason, as long as it's not for being part of a protected class.
And I agree. And you're free to move to a different business if you don't like the way that business is treating you. So it's, I always support people, the business's rights as well. Like if a business doesn't want to take my money because I didn't get the jab, then fine, I'll find a business that will take my money because I didn't get the jab or doesn't care. It's freedom on both ends.
Yeah, I want to make sure and clarify that when I say that you don't have to provide that information to the bar, you should not expect to still receive service from them. You should expect to be turned away and have to go somewhere else. There's no aspect of this where I'm saying they still owe you services or they still owe you access to anything. No, it's you are correct. They deserve the right to refuse service to you for any reason, and you can also refuse that as a consumer. Paul.
You say dystopian society, but it's really not relevant. But Sean King deleted himself, self-deleted himself from the internet. All social media is just gone. You know,
What?
the famous
Thank God.
black
Talk
person
is gone.
is no more.
Is it a coincidence that he deleted his social media shortly after he replied to me directly on Twitter for the first time? Just saying.
You must.
I might have
must
been the
have,
guy that took him down.
You might have been the guy that made him just quit social media, Jeremy.
I'll take partial credit for that one. That's awesome. I gotta verify that, Paul. I haven't seen. I have to say I haven't seen him. No, actually, I did see him last week because he was advocating for Lee Merritt. If you guys don't know who Lee Merritt is, this is another one of those names you need to get to know. Okay, like Nicole Hannah-Jones, like Ibram Kendi. You need to know Lee Merritt. Okay, so get that in your head because Lee Merritt is running for the AG of Texas. And if he wins,
I've seen that guy.
If he wins AG of Texas, we're screwed. Now, the reason why I say Lee Merritt is because Sean King was posting all about Lee Merritt on Twitter last week. So if he deleted himself, it must have been very recent. But just a side note, yeah, keep an eye on the AG election in Texas because if Lee Merritt gets it, Texas is basically going to fall. That is the first domino in the falling of Texas. It's a huge deal, actually. Lee Merritt is the guy who takes all the controversial police shooting cases. He basically is a lawyer that pretty much, he hates white people, he hates cops, and he wants to do everything to destroy law enforcement. You probably get a situation similar to Gascon in L.A. when Gascon became this attorney general there, and basically he wasn't even trying crimes anymore. He just made it legal to drink in the street, take dumps on the road. Minor misdemeanors all became legal, stuff like that. So you're going to see a similar situation if he gets in. So excuse the tangent, but I wanted to bring that up on last week's stream. I just didn't have the time to.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of celebrities who don't even live in Texas advocate for Lee Merritt to be that new attorney general. They're like, he's been fighting for civil rights, he's been doing this, this, and this. It's like, no, the only reason you're telling people to vote for him is because he's black. That's it. Y'all really don't really look into what he believes in, and if you did, you'd be disgusted with how racist this person probably is.
Osis has got a comment.
It's a thing of beauty when one white guy pretending to be black destroys the internet life of another white guy pretending to be black. I call that karma.
Hell yeah.
Yes, that's correct. I do identify as black for those who did not get his reference there. So, and I would actually argue that my skin is darker than his. So, just saying.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's not rocking a very good tan.
No, he's not. Let's go to. We got about 20 minutes left on the show, and yeah, we'll see if we can squeeze him in. We got a story about Facebook and misinformation, and then we've got South Africa to talk about. So South Africa, as you guys know, has been a big one. It's obviously been a globally speaking, anyway, probably the biggest story of the last week. But let's jump first to Facebook and misinformation, because I told you guys earlier in the stream that we'd be talking about this a little bit, and some of those earlier stories would be referring back to this. Now, you guys heard Jen Psaki, the U.S. press secretary for Biden administration, come out and say last week that basically they're telling Facebook what to censor on their platform, not working with, not suggesting. They're telling them as if, in kind of an actual fascistic state where you have the government being controlled, the corporations being controlled by the government. They still are private entities. They're not run by the government as they would be in a socialist system, but they're directly controlled and highly regulated by the government in a fascistic state. So nobody saw this. Nobody called this out as fascism, but it is what it is, and that fits the definition. So we're going to go to an article from Forbes.com as a follow-up to that event and what has happened since with Facebook. Now, you guys remember how I told you Facebook has been being uniquely singled out of all the social media pages, social media sites? It's still consistent. We're still only looking at Facebook, and they specifically mentioned Facebook, and the press secretary, when she comes out and talks, they're not talking about, we're going to look at misinformation on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. No, it's Facebook. It's always just Facebook. Why? Because Facebook is where all the boomers are. It's where all the conservatives have their little groups, because conservatives tend to be a little bit older. They've figured out how to use Facebook over the last 10 years, and they've congregated there, and have become very effective at spreading their information, whether it's misinformation or not. Anyway, from Forbes, more than 200 Facebook groups have been actively circulating coronavirus vaccine misinformation. More than 200 Facebook groups. Now, the whole point of this article is to lighten you up to the idea that we need to control Facebook. That's the whole point of this article. Control Facebook, or ban certain personalities off of Facebook, or just in general censor information on Facebook. After President Biden came down hard. Can President Biden come down hard on anything? I mean, he's like anyway. After he came down softly on Facebook last week over coronavirus vaccine misinformation, the company responded with almost equal force, insisting in no uncertain terms that it wasn't responsible for how that type of content has spread on the web. Thank you, Facebook, for that answer, because you are 100% correct. You know, and again, this goes directly back to what I was talking about. The left does not trust anyone to take care of themselves. They need to control you for your own good. We need to control the access of information that you have, to, because otherwise you're going to come to the wrong conclusions, right? And that's the exact approach you're taking with Facebook.
Yeah. You're going to be vaccine hesitant.
Oh yeah, no. If you don't get if you don't get told the right thing, or if you get exposed to information that we don't approve of, you might end up being vaccine hesitant against your own will. I mean, you won't even know what happened, but it's not going to be good for you. So we have to tell you what to think and how to think and all that good stuff. And thanks to new research released Tuesday, suggests that Facebook does indeed remain a place where such misinformation is circulating. Media Matters for America, a liberal tech watchdog organization, says it has found 284 active private and public Facebook groups currently distributing vaccine misinformation, more than double the amount that researchers found in April. Over 500,000 users belong to these groups, which is really not a lot when we're talking about internet numbers. 500,000 people, it's not that big of a deal. Facebook could not be reached to immediately comment about Media Matters' findings. Media Matters, by the way, is complete, absolute garbage. They don't exist to find objective reality. They exist to attack and destroy political enemies. So, in case you guys don't know who Media Matters is, that is their objective. They identified 6 groups with more than 15,000 members, and most of these half-dozen groups are private, underscoring an ongoing problem for the social network. Underscoring an ongoing problem? What are you talking about, ongoing problem? These groups are invite only. Ooh, they're making it sound so secret. Making them harder to track and a more fertile ground for misinformation to spread than public ones, which invite more immediate scrutiny. This is hilarious to see the spin. The discussion around Facebook's role in handling vaccine misinformation was heightened on Friday when President Biden made stark comments about his views on the company's culpability. Quote, "They're killing people. Come on, man, they're killing people."
Wow, that's a stretch, President Biden.
Did you hear him say that? He literally said that they're killing people.
Well,
in reference to the social media companies.
Wow, they're killing people, not people killing themselves or with their bad decisions and their poor health.
Exactly, it goes back to the social media these poor hapless people who aren't capable of thinking or handling their own lives. They're just exposed haphazardly to this information, and then they're killing themselves because of it. Not they're seeing information and making their own choices based on their own risk profiles, which is a way more nuanced and actual realistic description of what happens in life. But yeah, I just thought this was hilarious. And
yeah, Facebook is taking a minigun and just mowing people down with a minigun. That's what they're doing. That's the way that, like, dude, are you serious? That's what he's like trying to portray, that this is what Facebook is doing. It's like, no, people are killing themselves. Like, if people want to kill themselves, let them. Like, if people want to believe misinformation, then they have the right to do that, and they have the right to check it for themselves. But the way that They want to fearmonger people into believing that Facebook is the one that's responsible for all the misinformation. It's like, no, 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 no. That's not true, my friend.
They had a there was a highlighted. It wasn't this article. It was another article I was looking at on the same story. But they had a highlighted comment from one of the commenters, and it said, "Well, we all know that BS gets more clicks and gets more engagement because that was the argument that these groups get more engagement, which is why they're growing. We all know that BS gets more engagement." He did not happen to realize the irony of him posting on an article about misinformation on Facebook being spread by boomers, in that the entire article only exists as clickbait, as who is it, Phil or Zen says in the YouTube chat. He says, actually, the whole point of the article is clickbait to sell ads, which is 100% true. This isn't a real threat, but of course they got to make some money somehow. And the anti-vaxxer group is a direct continuation of the anti-Trump narrative, because did you get who was it? Jake Tapper had a guy on who's like a budget version of Frank Luntz, the statistics guy from Fox News, and he was basically saying, well, there's a huge overlap in people who aren't vaccinated and people who think Biden is not the real winner of the election, because they're trying from both ends, from the Trump end and the anti-vax end, to link these two populations together as a consistent, coherent, the same group, no overlapping. This is the same group of people. The Trump people are the people who are not getting vaccinated, and they want this to be used as a continuation of that political weapon. That's what this really is.
I know there's several people I know that voted for Trump and got the vaccine, not because they wanted to, but because their job was dependent on it. And they're not anti-vaxxers. They just got it because they needed to to have their job. So there aren't there is a large population of coronavirus vaccine, I should be more specific, that don't want to take it, but there are some that do, because they just don't want to cause a kerfluffle. So we can't just lump all people together and just say that, oh, if you voted for Trump or you like Trump, then you're an anti-vaxxer. It's like, no, just don't like this vaccine in particular, personally.
I'm jealous that I don't get to live in a world that's simple, where I only have to use 2% of my brain and I could just
Right.
Trump, no vaxxer, Trump bad, Orange Man bad, no vaxxer bad. And that's the extent of what's happening in their brains. I am envious, because that has got to be a comfortable life where you can't even think about anything more complicated beyond Orange Man bad.
Right.
It probably would get a little boring
Cheeto
after
bad.
a while, though. But the great thing about that is that you don't have the intelligence to be aware of what you're missing out on. So maybe that really is the better way to live. Maybe they're more happy than I am. I don't know. Anyway, we got we got a blue-haired chick in stereo, so I'm really eager to get to that. But first, a comment from Paul.
The current White House press secretary can call herself Jen all she wants. She's the ultimate Karen. That's all she is.
Yep.
No, I saw a Photoshop picture of her for like a Miss America pageant winner, where they get like the ribbon. Only it said Miss Information. Like Miss America, Miss Universe.
That was awesome.
Miss Information.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good.
She really is the ultimate Karen. Like, if Karen got to level 100, that would be Jen Psaki.
Pretty much, yeah. Let's circle back on that after this comment here.
The problem is, when you believe misinformation, you're not just going to kill yourself, you're going to kill other people too. You're going to spread the virus to your vulnerable family members.
So, to what extent are you willing to go to prevent people that aren't you from hurting other people who also aren't you? That sounds a little authoritarian to me, if you want to really control other people's behavior because you perceive a risk. But anyway, he's got a follow-up here.
They've said it on tape, these Trumpers, that they don't want to take the vaccine because it's a Biden vaccine. They've said it. It came out of their mouths.
Yeah.
Not all.
They've made the decision as part of their risk profile. They would rather get COVID than take the vaccine. Why can't that decision be respected? That's the question I don't have for
because like he said, you're gonna kill all these other people around you if you don't take it, even though.
Well, you're only going to kill the obese people. or the fat, or the
The
old
obese
people.
and the old and the, people with all kinds of other health problems.
Exactly. Okay, we got another comment here from a new chick. The icon's a chick, but I'm not going to misgender her.
Everyone's a victim. They can't make any choices. They're forced into it. Ah! Oh, I'm sick of it. Really am.
Hell yeah.
It's farce book. It's twatter. Nobody who's educated or thinks for themselves takes anything on these platforms seriously.
Yes.
There are places to go to get information, and Farcebook and Twitter are just a way to distribute information. That's all. They're just distributors.
Yes.
And they don't qualify for legal immunity. As soon as they start editing posts, they become publishers and not just distributors.
Exactly.
And they can and will be sued if they continue to censor and edit people's content. Don't just take my word for it. Go look it up.
That's the exact argument that Facebook is making. They're saying, hey, no, we're not responsible. Like, this platform, you could share as much non-misinformation as you can share misinformation. But I think that the core of her argument is that basically Facebook and social media in general are cesspools in general. And I would agree with that 100%, which is why I don't use those platforms. If you get health information from Facebook groups, you deserve to have whatever consequences happen to you, because that is not any sort of reliable at all. Now, I can see some value in, like a cancer survivors group or something like that, or exploring natural remedies for health, but for
support
real
groups. I remember when I was younger, I was a lifeguard, and we had a group on Facebook to get our schedules and to talk to each other and stuff like that. So there was that aspect of Facebook that I did enjoy. But yeah, I got off Facebook in like 2016, right after the election, because I was sick of the cesspool of just misinformation, and just on both sides. There was misinformation about Trump, there was misinformation about Bernie, there was misinformation about Hillary. There was just types of misinformation from all sides to try to get you to vote one way or the other. And I couldn't handle it. I was like, I'm done. Screw this platform. Like, screw it.
Yeah, there's it's kind of a natural selection in a way. If you get your health information from Facebook, I don't know what to tell you. Well,
Quote Michael Malice, freedom is doing what you want, not what others want you to do.
there you go. But I guess some people just don't want you to be free.
A lot of Americans. You're going to sacrifice all these Americans just because you don't want to wear a mask or take a vaccine? Come on, that's a little heartless.
Who's sacrificing anything? You have the decision not to go out in public if you don't want to be exposed to this. But see, that's the thing. It's you have the decision to control your own actions. But once you tell businesses to shut down, or you tell other people not to go out, or you tell other people to restrict their behavior, that's kind of where the core of America really does not, mesh well with your suggestions. So that's kind of what this whole country is really based off of. You have the individual choice to do whatever you want. If you want to expose yourself to the risk, go out and do it. Expose yourself. But don't tell other people, as Paul says, what to do or how to do it.
Yeah, you're free to go out and wear a mask and then judge me because I'm not wearing a mask, and I won't judge. But the thing is, I'm not going to judge you for wearing a mask in public if that's what you want to do. If that's the sacrifice you're willing to make, then cool. The sacrifice I'm willing to make is just, I want my freedoms. Like, I just want to be able to go out and do my thing and not have to have a stupid vaccination card with me at all times to prove that I've been vaccinated. Like, it's
I think I just understood his comment. I think I misinterpreted it the first time. I think what he's saying is, if you want to send thousands of old people into nursing homes where they can get and spread COVID easily as a high-risk population on each other, and then sacrifice them to like some demonic entity, then I think that's what he's meaning with the sacrifice thing. Because otherwise, I can't see the term sacrifice being fit into anything that a normal human being would do, like going to the grocery store, getting gas, stuff like that. So
yeah. Well, good thing I'm not going into old people homes all the time and giving my germs to all of them.
Well, that was a Governor Cuomo reference for those of you who may not have understood that initially. We got Osis.
This guy's full of crap. Trump pushed the vaccine. He took the vaccine, and he tells people to get the vaccine all the time. So people that like Trump still don't have to like the vaccine. Not everyone is in lockstep with the guy. They're not cultists like they like to be portrayed in the mainstream media. Just more fucking bullshit lies from a brainwashed leftist.
My stereo is great because now we got the audience members fighting each other, and that's just perfect. You know, this is
Yep.
the content creates itself. Thank you, Osis, for that. I think enough said on COVID. We just got another comment came in. Okay, we'll let Osis do a follow up, and then we'll move on to the last segment.
Yeah, you
of the
get
night.
to sacrifice all the old people in the nursing homes, and you get heralded as a hero of the Republic, and you get an Emmy. And your brother fillets you on television while using prop comedy with a giant nasal swab. It's
Yep.
It's really the way to go. Just be left wing.
That's definitely what he meant when he said sacrifice.
Yep. Sacrifice all those oldies. Yep. That's exactly what I want. I want to see all the old people die because I don't care about them. That's why I'm not going into old folks' home all the time.
Okay, we gotta talk about South Africa here. So we've got because nobody, I don't see the mainstream media talking about South Africa. I know Fox News probably is a little bit like, oh, look at the apartheid. This is what racist is. What now? This is not going to be a segment about this is why South Africa has fallen, and this is all the socioeconomic conditions that caused this to happen. This is not what that's going to be. Okay, this is going to be just a basic exposure to show you guys some of the imagery and get an opinion on why this may have gone down, because I'm fully admitting to you that I do not understand why South Africa has fallen. Is there a racial element to it? Probably, yeah. But you know what? On the weekly narrative, well, you know that part of the whole point of the stream is for us to think out loud. We're still in the process of kind of figuring this one out. But part of that is actually looking at what's actually happening, because nobody else is going to be showing you that. So South Africa, over the last week and a half, has undergone basically a week straight of rioting, looting, violence, vandalizing public property, people fighting each other in the streets, and just general chaos and disruption and annihilation. We've seen like tanker trucks full of milk just having to dump their payloads in, I don't know what the word is for tank full of milk, into fields because the processing plants have been shut down or damaged by rioting. We've seen entire malls and shopping centers on fire, people looting objects like TVs with forklifts in the middle of streets. But let's show you some imagery maybe that you haven't seen before, and then we'll get into a quick explanation from who is it that we're going to be looking at, from abcnews.go, about why this may be happening. So on your screen, for those of you on youtube.com/weeklynarrative, you're going to see some imagery here. The first video is one taken at nighttime from a mall where there's a looter on the second story or third story of a shopping center, and there's glass being broken. I'm going to turn the volume up a little bit here. We see guys trying to move objects in the second story, and then one of them falls off of through the broken glass, and then and it's quite a long fall too.
Yep, that'll break some bones.
Yeah.
Wait for it. Okay, so as part of the looting, somebody just fell out of like the third story of a mall. This one kind of made the rounds quite a bit. This is a video of roughly 10 or so armed people shooting what appear to be live fire rounds at a few hundred protesters, rioters who are trying to approach whatever area that they are protecting. Now this is kind of what I envision is going to be happening if Antifa ever tries to invade the suburbs. You know, this is likely similar to what would happen in that situation. They got stop signs. They got like traffic signs they're using as shields. There's cars stopped in the streets. People are throwing rocks. It's chaos. Our next one shows the police actually taking part in the looting. They're loading up their car with some kind of objects, boxes. And guys, I have to take this Twitter person's account for at face value. I'm assuming they are correct. All of this may be incorrect, but I wasn't there, so I don't know. But you're seeing imagery of police putting a bunch of things, brightly colored objects and boxes of things into their car before they completely ignore the mob of people running by. So here's another video of a Molotov cocktail being thrown at a truck with a bunch of stolen goods in it. Pretty dramatic footage there as the truck drives by with a bed full of objects like TVs and refrigerators, things like that. There's a bunch of bystanders with bats and objects just in the streets, walking around, looking, waiting for looters, throwing a Molotov cocktail at the truck as it goes by. You've got looters scattering out of shopping centers at night after gunshots were heard, and there were several hundred people killed during these events over the course of the week. So these were not just like peaceful protests akin to the things that you would see in America. These were violent protests where police were shooting people. Private security, which is a huge industry in South Africa, was shooting people. People were shooting other people. A lot of violence on multiple levels. Now, the next one is quite dramatic. You see an entire, what appears to be a shopping center. It's a mall in Pietermaritzburg, burned by looters. The smoke cloud was so big that it could be seen from space, according to the Twitter post here. And this is like a huge mall, and basically the entire thing is on fire. It looked like a volcano exploded. There's so much smoke. So, pretty dramatic there. Farmland is being burned. This is a video apparently of some farmland being burned somewhere. I'm sure it's not an uncommon occurrence for South Africa, as you guys seen in things like what was that documentary, The Farmlands, that Lauren Southern did that she got called a racist for. She covered a lot of this kind of stuff about how racial apartheid was fueling farm destruction, private property destruction, things like that. And this is largely probably a continuation of that as well. Here we see a truck on fire. There was one looter lying dead in the street nearby after a mob of people tried to swarm an establishment. They were engaged by armed citizens who were protecting their own property with firearms. How about that? Here's a video of them looting animals. Now, while some people choose to loot things like Nikes and cell phones, we're seeing goats being pulled by the ear or by the horn. Chickens being stolen.
Goats.
Yep, they're being just grabbing all kinds of livestock, whatever they can get their hands on, throwing it in their putting the goats in the Civic and then driving off.
Anything but the goats.
Here's Johannesburg, South Africa. I believe it's the capital, but don't quote me on that. Fires in the middle of the streets. It looks like literally a shot out of Escape from New York, where there's just debris everywhere, littering the streets, smoke filling the air. A group of people could be seen in the background as obviously nothing resembling normal operations of the city are occurring. Johannesburg, again, a shot of some shopping center completely on fire. Again, rubble, debris, littering the streets everywhere. Fire is burning. This whole building is going to be destroyed and unusable. This one is fascinating. This is a truck full of private security patrolling the streets looking for looters. They've got a truck full of private security, and they're shooting at people as they drive by.
Wow. That's,
You can see in the side view mirror the guy hanging off the side with some kind of like an AR rifle, something like that.
it's mostly peaceful, though.
Mostly peaceful. So I mean, is this not Mad Max? You guys think I'm joking when I say Mad Max is coming? I'm ready for Mad Max. Give me Mad Max. With this imagery that you're seeing, should be hearkening memories of things like Washington D.C. last year during the race riots in America, where we saw the night imagery of the entire city on fire. There was smoke everywhere, riots in the streets. That was just 1 or 2 degrees away from what you're seeing here, where you guys literally have guys driving around in pickup trucks with guns hanging out, shooting people randomly, just at random, because they think you're a looter. They're going to shoot you. This video is quite graphic. They got looters on the street. People have apprehended looters. They were beating them. You can see they're quite bloody. Basically, it's people enforcing their own law at this point, because what happens when their police are unable to do their jobs, people will do it for them. And
when police aren't able to do their jobs, and also police join in on the looting and doing all of the menacing.
That's correct. So people are going to fight back against the looters, as I think some people in the YouTube chat were commenting on. This isn't just the government versus the people. This is the people versus the people. This is complete and absolute chaos, because some people are trying to protect the goods in the stores, and some people are trying to take the goods. Here we have a mob of looters broke through a barricade into a private residential area, and you can hear gunshots going off, again, from private security.
Yep.
Because guess what happens when you don't have a public police force? Private security will fill its place. And South Africa being a very high murder rate country, they have again, like I mentioned previously, a very high propensity for private security to protect people that have money, particular neighborhoods, things like that. Some people say, what are you going to do when you don't have cops? Well, then you got just normal people working for a company shooting people on the streets. Here we got looters being beaten with bats by just normal people. Again, people versus people. Getting beaten with baseball bats. We got people stopping truck caravans of armed looters on their way to loot, being stopped in the street, being questioned and detained by, again, normal people at gunpoint.
This is so sad.
Some shots from inside one of the malls there, and I know this is a long list, but I really want to drive this point home, because there are some similarities that, I mean, we're only a few degrees away from this kind of thing happening in America, and you're not going to see this on CNN or MSNBC. This is inside a mall. People were just, I mean, this chick's trying to grab a whole box full of stuff, toilet paper, whatever. The entire thing is completely annihilated, destroyed.
Looks like somebody tried to jack a refrigerator. Oh, somebody is jacking a refrigerator.
Oh yeah, no, it's gonna. We got. I think I got footage of somebody stealing a TV with a forklift here soon too. So this is inside again what appears to be otherwise a nice looking mall, very modern, upscale mall. People just coming in freely, windows smashed, stuff all over the floors, absolute chaos. Exactly what you'd expect to see in a Mad Max type situation. Cars burning outside in the parking lot, people breaking into blood banks as they're being recorded for live TV news broadcasts. I don't know why you'd want to break into a blood bank, but
why would you want to steal blood?
Well, I also saw footage of a crematorium burned down. Irony aside, you got to ask the question: why would anyone try to burn down a crematorium? But again, this is where a state of pure chaos. This is exactly what happens in a state of pure chaos. It doesn't matter. There's no question. There's no rhyme or reason. Here's a KFC burning down. Here's another mall in Durban on fire. Could have been the one we saw in the previous footage, but completely annihilated, destroyed, rubble everywhere. Here's a packaging facility, which looks to be, a large building akin to like an Amazon warehouse, on fire at night, completely annihilated, destroyed. Here's a group of people protecting their own community with, a vehicle blockade and baseball bats and weaponry with what appears to be a horde of zombies approaching in the distance. Now,
oh my gosh,
this imagery that I'm showing you is when I joke about zombies and mutants and Mad Max. Guys, this is it. They could not have given me a better example to show you. Look at what can happen when this stuff escalates to this point. Here's another huge mall, which looks like it got hit by a tornado or an earthquake or something, just completely engulfed in flames, collapsing in upon itself. Police attempt to arrest looters. I don't even know why, because the guy just runs away. Obviously, the police do not care at all. Again, making the argument that you should be able to protect yourself. Here's another drive-by shot of a neighborhood in a place that I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but the entire city, the entire town looks like a tornado hit, like a Category 5 or F5 tornado just came through and blew everything apart. There's smoke in the background, people running wildly through the streets, litter, rubble, everything, everywhere. This is South Africa, folks. Now, this one is obviously quite graphic. A guy's just dying on the street. There's blood everywhere. He got shot or something. Here's a video of residents who burnt the local squatter camps. Yeah, so when anarchy breaks out, or whatever you want to call it, when chaos breaks out, guess what do you think's going to happen to all those homeless people that people have been trying to tolerate for months and months and months? Well, here they decided to just burn their entire neighborhood down.
Yeah. Wow.
And the list goes on
sad.
and on and on. But all this imagery is stuff that you probably never saw on the media, and you probably would never see it anywhere but alternative media sources, such as right here on the Weekly Narrative. So again, guys, the Mad Max is never very far away from happening. Okay, just that's the point I'm trying to drive home with this array of imagery.
Yeah, this is bad, y'all. Like, this is real bad. Like, I knew that there was all kinds of stuff going on in South Africa right now, but I didn't know it was this bad. Because, yeah, the mainstream media won't show you these graphic images because they don't want people to be sad. But you should be. You should be. This is disturbing, you guys. This is very, very disturbing time for this country.
Now, there's a couple stats I want to point out from this article that I found interesting, and I'm not going to assign this event to any particular cause like racism or inequality, but there's a couple interesting things that I want to point out here. The unemployment rate in South Africa is more than 32%, and it's above 64% for people under the age of 35. More than half of the country's 60 million people live in poverty, and more than 20% are food insecure. Well,
of course that's why they're jacking refrigerators, Jeremy. They're food insecure. They don't have anything to store their food in.
Yeah, and the high definition Toshiba's TVs as well.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the similarity can't help but be pointed out between the protests that happen in America, where you have largely unemployed young people who have nothing better to do with their lives than go out and protest and riot. Case in point, look at Portland. They've been doing it pretty much every week for the last year and a half. But it's all these people riot. They protest on like Mondays, Tuesdays in the middle of the day, and the question is always how can you do that? And the answer is they are unemployed. So that's I would venture to guess a large factor in this kind of stuff that we're seeing.
Wait. You're saying it's not white people that are causing all this?
Well, this all started when the standing president Zuma, handed himself in to go to prison. I think he got sentenced to like 19 months or something like that. So this was actually highly politically motivated as well. Some people are actually calling it an insurrection that the Zuma guy planned. And they did arrest a bunch of people for inciting violence, spreading information on, guess where? Social media, to coordinate and initiate this looting and this violence. So, again, social media can be pointed to as a facilitator. But, yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of factors involved. A lot of people are saying, racism, critical race theory. Obviously, this is kind of the end result of a country that's founded based on the concept of forced equality, things like that. That has yet to be investigated thoroughly by myself, so I'm not going to draw any conclusions there. But we got a bunch of stereo comments come in. I want to get to those, and then we will wrap it up.
Okay.
Let's see. Alan Queen, new person.
This is just an example of America being the world's role model. We showed everyone how to independence, how to revolution, and now we showed everyone how to riot.
Hell yeah! USA!
What I want to know is, where's Oscar Pistorius in all of this? He would handle this no problem. He took care of his girlfriend. I'm sure some random looters, which he was supposedly saving himself from to begin with. He's all ready for this shit. Haven't heard a peep from him. I'm very disappointed.
Yes, we need to find out where Oscar is. Him and his, doesn't he have metal legs now? Somebody find out where Oscar is. Let's get his opinion on this. Where's Ja Rule? We need to know what Ja Rule thinks.
Yeah, Ja Rule.
And to continue on from my previous comment, it seems like everyone's following our example, and just like with the revolutions, they're just doing it the same way, but a little bit more bloody and a little bit more silly, I'd say.
No. It's not. It's only about 300 people that have died so far, so it's not as bloody as it could be.
Yeah.
It's also utterly wild how this Twitter account makes it a point to just point out everyone's race or ethnicity or religion and all of these, when it very clearly looks like it's just every man for himself, regardless of race, creed, color, and whatever this is.
Yeah, I chose to leave out the editorialization on the fact that pretty much every post he said, the black looters, the black police officers. Yeah, we get it, dude. People in Africa, in South Africa are black. It basically was every man for themselves. I don't think there's any particular racial lines as far as who was looting or defending. I know there were actually some Indian people who were part of that defense brigade with the live fire rounds that were defending themselves. So, I didn't even know there was an Indian population in South Africa, but who knows?
Indians don't play, bro.
Paul.
Jeremy makes a great point, and I mentioned it to him over the weekend. Terrence Popp, 30-year Army veteran, Ranger, Green Beret, Special Forces Infantry. And he has a YouTube channel. It's Red Pill Dating. So that's not everyone's cup of tea, and he's a veteran. But he talks about that zombies are real. America has the biggest zombie population in the world. It's called the prison population. In case of a generalized societal collapse, the collapse of the prisons is going to put millions of hardcore felons, like not nice people, instantly into the wild, into your backyard. They have they have nothing but violence of action and force of will, and desire to not starve.
Pure Mad Max, people. It is that far away, so don't get too comfortable. Always be looking to adapt. Always be aware of your surroundings. And when I say surroundings, I mean not just your immediate surroundings. I mean the society that you live in, which is why, based on my assessments, I have decided to try to reduce my dependence on the society as much as possible. So that is the active measures that I'm taking. I don't know. What do you think about all this stuff, Delaney?
I don't know. It's hard to watch, but
it is dramatic footage. We haven't seen anything like this in a long time, to this degree.
To this degree, yeah. I mean, last year's riots were bad, but I feel like they definitely one upped us.
That was nothing compared to this.
Yeah, that's nothing compared to this. Like, yes, people died in the riots last year for George Floyd, R.I.P. But this is like taking it to a whole new level. Like, this is, wow, okay, yeah.
All right, we got a comment that just came in from a new guy. He's got a black avatar, so maybe he's from South Africa. Let's see.
Hey, wait a minute. I thought everybody liked those Joker movies. Come on, everybody been waiting for this one, right? I mean, ever since the 80s, they've been telling us this is how it's finna get, and it looks like, fuck, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Isn't this great? Can't we relish in this? Remember, all this shit is evil, so, if it is falling, let's rejoice!
Yeah. Hell yeah, let's
He's got a point.
Stand together and rejoice, yeah.
He's got a point,
I mean, they've been preparing us for this kind of thing, since the 80s with all of the, dystopian future kind of movies that have been coming out since then. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sad at the fact that people have died and that all these businesses are burning down, but at the same time, I'm not surprised that this is happening right now.
Well, in an American context, because again, I don't know the full situation, all the variables involved in South Africa, but in an American context, are we due for a reset? Are we due for a flood, an earthquake, kind of a restart of society with the new information that we've learned? Like, maybe it's not a good idea to chop our kids' nuts off. Like, we can start over and not do that this time. Maybe it's not a good idea to, make 99% of our teachers all women. Just little adjustments we can make. Burn the thing down. Start over with some minor adjustments. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst
people.
idea. It's not the worst idea in the world, Jeremy. It's really not. The alternative is what's going on in South Africa. That's our alternative, is to just let things burn, and then society will never.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
we'll never regain.
We can't fix the path that we're on. The inevitable outcome is a South Africa. That's the action that needs to happen for us to kind of reset and make the changes that a lot of people want to see. You're not going to convince people that chopping your kids' nuts off is a bad thing. You're not going to convince people that not having kids is a good thing. Because then we're just going to die out from depopulation and birth rate crises. And there's a lot of things that are just endemic to society at this point that are not going to be just logicked out. They're not going to be convinced out of people. And the argument could be made, not that I'm making it, but the argument could be made that a catastrophic event like this is really kind of the next step to really get a new iteration, a new version of society with the changes necessary. All right, guys. Well, we went 2.5 hours. Hopefully, you saw some footage there. You got some more information that we... So you're saying I should cancel my holiday to South Africa. PJ Fan, I would recommend that. But on the opposite side of that, it could be really cheap right now.
Yeah.
Really cheap vacations to South Africa if you want.
Yep, could be super cheap. And I mean, if you want to go down there and have some anarchy and maybe shoot a few rounds at a live target, you that might be more of your boat.
Ben Savage says it's time to start balkanizing the states into the sane and the insane territories. Well, you know what, man? That's already pretty much happening to a large degree. Texas and California, for example, Florida. You see examples of states who are acting very differently from each other, and I think federalizing this country instead of unitarianizing it into one entity, breaking it up, the states, we already have balkanization. We just need to realize that we have different states, let the governors turn their own states into their own environments that are distinct and separate from each other, and let people sort themselves out. So, yeah, I agree.
Let more crazies come into California. We love them. Yeah, let's do it.
Why not? Do it. Yeah, hit the thumbs up. Thanks, Stalking Horse, for reminding everybody. And you guys know where to find us. We're here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. PST on youtube.com/weeklynarrative and stereo. That was quite the long show. I hope you guys enjoyed it, got information that you liked and found relevant. Feel free to drop any interesting stories that you find and you would like our opinion on. Not necessarily in agreement with, but you want to get an objective observer's, an alt-centrist's perspective on a particular story, you can drop them at weeklynarrativeca@gmail.com and we will evaluate it. And that's about it.
Yeah, we're also on Telegram as well, so you can also join our chat on Telegram.
Private Telegram.
We've got quite.
Description.
Yep, we've got quite a few people on our Telegram that we all chat and share stories and talk about our days and kind of stuff.